drifting waves that rivaled towering hurricane swells. With the sun came the wind, which lashed at the tops of the dunes so that sand blew off their crests in stinging clouds. "Aye, laddie," he said without looking at the man standing next to him. "How can you be sure?" H.A. turned to his companion, John Varley. "They'll follow us to the gates of hell for what we did to them." The certainty in H.A.'s raspy voice made Varley blanch under his tan. Like Ryder, the 4 other men in their party were all English-born and had come to Africa to seek their fortunes, though none was as seasoned as their guide. "We'd best get going," Ryder said. They'd been traveling under the relatively cool cover of darkness. "We can cover a few miles before the sun climbs too high." "I think we should make camp here," said Peter Smythe, the greenest member of the group and by far the worst off. He'd lost his swaggering attitude shortly after entering the sand sea and now moved with the shuffling gait of an old man. White crusts had formed at the corners of his eyes and mouth, while his once bright blue eyes had grown dim. Ryder glanced at Peter and saw the signs immediately. They'd all shared the same water ration since filling their canteens and jerry cans 10 days earlier at a brackish well, but Smythe's body seemed to need more than the others. It wasn't a question of strength or will. It was simply the lad needed to drink more to stay alive. H.A. knew to the drop how much water remained, and unless he could find another desert well, Smythe would be the first to die. The thought of giving him an extra ration never entered Ryder's mind. "We go on." He looked westward and saw the mirror image of the terrain they'd already covered. Sand dune piled upon sand dune in endless ranks that stretched seemingly forever. The sky was turning brassy as light reflected off the infinite desert. Ryder checked his mount. The animal was suffering, and for that he felt guilty. Worse than his feelings for young Smythe, in fact, for the poor animal had no choice but to carry them across this cruel environment. He used a clasp knife to remove a stone from the horse's hoof and adjusted the saddle blanket where the pannier straps were beginning to chafe. The animal's once glossy coat was dull and hung in flaps where its flesh had begun to waste away. He stroked the horse's cheek and muttered a few soothing words into its ear. There was no way any of them could ride their mounts. The animals were already struggling under their lightened loads. He took up the reins and started off. Ryder's boots sank to the uppers as he led the horse down the face of a dune. Sand shifted under them, hissing and sliding down the embankment and threatening to send the pair tumbling if either took a misstep. H.A. didn't look back. The men had no choice but to follow or die where they stood. He walked for an hour as the sun continued its inexorable climb into the cloudless sky. He'd tucked a smooth pebble between his teeth and tongue to try to fool his body that he wasn't severely dehydrated. When he paused to wipe the inside of his big slouch hat, the heat scorched the red patch of skin on the crown of his head. He wanted to go for another hour, but he could hear the men struggling behind him. They weren't yet at the point where he would consider abandoning them, so he led them to the lee of a particularly tall dune and began to erect a sunshade using the horse blankets. The men flopped to the ground, panting as he set up their meager camp. H.A. checked on Peter Smythe. The young man's lips were nothing but raw blisters that leaked clear fluid, and the tops of his cheeks were burned as if with an iron straight from the brazier. Ryder reminded him to only loosen his bootlaces. All of their feet were so swollen that to remove their boots meant they'd never get them back on again. They watched him expectantly as he finally took a couple of canteens.